On March 3, 1924, the Turkish Grand National Assembly abolished the Caliphate, the spiritual leadership of over 1 billion Muslims that had existed in some form for 1300 years. The last Caliph was given 24 hours to leave the country. And the aftershock of that single act is still rippling through the world right now. But the Caliphate was just the last thing to go. Before that, there was a world war, a revolution, a genocide, and the complete dismemberment of an empire that had governed a quarter of the globe for 6 centuries. The Ottoman Empire did not just collapse. It was ripped apart by foreign powers, internal revolts, and its own catastrophic decision to pick the losing side in the deadliest war in human history. What if none of that had happened? What if the Ottoman Empire had survived? To answer that, you need to understand what the world lost when the empire fell. At its peak in the 17th century, the Ottoman Empire stretched from the gates of Vienna to the deserts of Yemen, from the coast of Algeria to the mountains of Persia. It governed Turks, Arabs, Greeks, Armenians, Kurds, Jews, Slavs, and Berbers under a single political system for longer than most modern nations have existed. The millet system gave Christians and Jews their own courts, their own schools, their own community leaders. People paid taxes and kept the peace. In return, they were largely left alone to worship and govern their internal affairs. This was not equality in the modern sense. But when Spain was burning heretics and France was slaughtering Protestants, the Ottoman Empire was the place where expelled Jews from Spain rebuilt their lives. The empire began to lose territory in the late 17th century. Greece gained independence in 1832. France took Algeria. Britain took Egypt. Russia carved away the Black Sea coast. The Balkan nations, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, Montenegro, broke free one by one. By 1913, after the Balkan Wars, the Ottomans had lost nearly everything in Europe except a small strip around Istanbul. But the empire was not dead. It was reforming. The Tanzimat era, from 1839 to 1876, saw genuine modernization. Secular courts alongside religious ones. A new education system. Railways, telegraphs, commercial codes modeled on French law. In 1876, the Ottomans adopted their first constitution. If history had taken a slightly different turn, this could have been the empire's Meiji Restoration, the moment it transformed from a medieval monarchy into a modern state, the way Japan did in the same era. It did not happen. Sultan Abdul Hamid II suspended the constitution in 1878 and ruled as an autocrat for 30 years. The Young Turks' Revolution of 1908 forced him to restore it. But the men who took power, the three pashas, made a decision in 1914 that destroyed everything. They allied with Germany. And when Germany lost, the Ottomans lost with them. Gallipoli was an Ottoman victory. A young officer named Mustafa Kemal held the beaches against the British and the Anzacs, and that victory would eventually make him the founder of modern Turkey. But everywhere else, the empire was bleeding. The disastrous Sarıkamış campaign killed 90,000 troops in the Caucasus winter. The Arab Revolt, fueled by British promises of independence that were never meant to be kept, shredded Ottoman control of the Hijaz, Palestine, and Syria. And then there was the genocide. Between 1915 and 1923, the Ottoman government systematically deported and killed an estimated 1 to 1.5 million Armenians. This is recognized as genocide by the overwhelming majority of historians and over 30 governments. It remains one of the most devastating atrocities of the 20th century. When the war ended in 1918, the victorious powers carved up the empire exactly as they had secretly agreed. The Sykes-Picot Agreement, signed in 1916, while Arabs were fighting and dying for the promise of independence, divided the Arab provinces between Britain and France. The Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 went further. It partitioned Anatolia itself, giving pieces to Greece, Italy, France, and Armenia. The Kurds were promised autonomy. The Straits were internationalized. The empire was finished. Except Mustafa Kemal refused to accept it. He fought a war of independence, drove out the occupiers, forced the Allies to negotiate a new treaty at Lausanne in 1923, and created the Republic of Turkey from the ashes. But in doing so, he abandoned everything that was not Turkish. The Arab provinces were gone. The Kurds lost their promised state. The Caliphate was abolished. And the lines that Sykes and Picot had drawn became the borders of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. Now erase all of that. The Ottomans do not enter World War I. They stay neutral, or they join the winning side. The empire survives. The first thing that changes is the map. There is no Sykes-Picot. No one carves Iraq from three provinces that had nothing in common. No one creates Lebanon by drawing a line around a Christian population and adding enough Muslims to make the country ungovernable. No one hands Palestine to Britain, and Britain does not promise it to the Zionist movement. The Balfour Declaration, those 67 words that reshaped the Middle East, is never written because Britain has no claim to the territory. There are still Kurds, but they live in one state, not four. There are still Sunnis and Shia in Mesopotamia, but they exist within an imperial system designed to manage exactly that kind of diversity, not crammed into an artificial country by foreigners who needed their oil. The second thing that changes is energy. Arabian oil was discovered in the 1930s. Under Ottoman rule, that oil belongs to the empire. There is no Aramco. No American oil concessions. No petrodollar system. The Ottoman Empire, already controlling the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and Africa, becomes one of the wealthiest states on earth. The third thing that changes is Russia. In our timeline, the Ottomans closed the Dardanelles when they entered the war, cutting off Russia's supply lines through the straits. This contributed to the shortages that fueled the Russian Revolution. If the straits stay open, if the Ottomans stay neutral, Russia is better supplied, the war may end sooner, and the Bolshevik Revolution might never happen. No Soviet Union. No Cold War as we knew it. The fourth thing that changes, and this is the one that echoes loudest today, is the Caliphate. If the Ottoman Empire survives, the Caliphate is not abolished. There is no institutional vacuum at the heart of Sunni Islam. The Muslim Brotherhood, founded in Egypt in 1928 specifically in response to the Caliphate's abolition, either never exists or takes a completely different form. Al-Qaeda and ISIS, both of which built their ideologies around the dream of restoring what was lost, have no lost caliphate to restore. The entire trajectory of political Islam in the 20th century rewrites itself. In 2014, ISIS declared its leader the Caliph and bulldozed the Iraq-Syria border, filming a propaganda video called The End of Sykes-Picot. They understood that the borders were colonial inventions. They understood that the Caliphate's abolition left a wound. They were catastrophically wrong about the solution. But the wound they exploited was real. The Ottoman Empire was not a paradise. It was an imperial system that extracted taxes, suppressed rebellions, and committed atrocities. The Armenian genocide is proof that the empire at its worst was capable of monstrous evil. No alternate history should erase that. But the system that replaced it, the carved-up, colonially drawn, artificially bordered Middle East that exists today, has produced a century of civil wars, sectarian violence, foreign interventions, and millions of displaced people. Not because the people living there are incapable of peace, but because they were forced into borders that were never designed for them by men who never had to live inside them. The Ottoman Empire lasted 600 years. It governed a region of extraordinary diversity through a system that was imperfect but functional. When it fell, nothing comparable replaced it. Just lines on a map and a century of consequences. 600 years of governance. Erased in 6 years of war. And the world is still trying to put the pieces back together.